the program for the families. So we're really excited to have you all here. And we have 3 special guests, and I'm going to start it off with Miss Shelley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shelley Kennison. I'm the Director of Off-Campus and Commuter Student Services. And I've been here at Bridgewater for just about 19 years in a different capacity, but just started this office almost a year ago. So I'm super excited to talk to you all tonight.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Corey. I am an area coordinator for first-year student housing here at Bridgewater State. I've been here about 3 years. I work in one of our I work exclusively in one of our first-year residence halls, but I also oversee all of the first-year residence halls on campus. Like I said, I've been here 3 years, but I'm also a BSU alum too. So it's really good to be back at the university and kind of serving the university from an employee perspective too.
Hi, everyone. My name is Britt. I am a junior at Bridgewater State. I'm a theater major. I wear different hats around campus. I am a student orientation leader, as well as a resident assistant in the student apartments.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourself. Michelle and I just want to start off by explaining the expectations that we have for this Q&A session. This Q&A session is directed for all you family members to have any questions regarding your student living on campus or being a commuting student. We're going to keep it directed that way. We have 2 very important campus partners that have obviously great experience that can provide that for you. And then we have a student experience with Britt. So we would love for you all to just ask your questions. We're going to keep you all muted just for the sake that we're all in different environments, and we just want to keep it quiet so we can hear what the answers are. But if you have any questions, you can use the raise hand function in the chat in Zoom, or you can chat a question. Michelle and I ourselves will be muted, but we will be responding to questions in the chat if you don't feel comfortable voicing your question. But please feel free. This is just a Q&A session for all of you to get your housing and commuting questions out there with some of our really important campus partners.
And we just want to start off by saying this is the first in the Q&A series, so feel free to come to as many Q&As as you'd like. And that obviously there are a lot of questions surrounding the fall and what that's going to look like. And as much as we wish we had all of those answers, obviously we don't. We wish we did. So we're obviously our campus partners and all of us are going to try to answer as many questions as we can, giving you as much detail as we can. But I just ask you be patient with us and our campus partners, since obviously we don't know all of the details that our university is making plans with yet. So we're just going to kick it off. If anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or send in the chat.
We have a question in the chat section, Michelle. The question is, if housing does happen in the fall on campus, do you currently anticipate more than 1 student per room? And Alex, I'm going to direct that question to you.
Sure, yeah. So right now our department and the university are working to create what can be the safest option for us to be able to welcome students back in the fall. Like Michelle has said, we don't have all of the answers yet, but we are working towards getting students back in the fall in a limited capacity. So it's not going to be, I can tell you for a fact, it's not going to be full capacity what it normally is in previous years, but there will be some sort of either 1 student per room or 2, depending on the size of the room. We're still working out those logistics, but it will be a limited capacity.
Regarding the decision of what's going to happen in the fall, we might have an answer at the end of the month, beginning of July, sometime this summer. So make sure you and your student are constantly checking your student's BSU email. That's most likely where they'll get an update, or a video might be posted on the BSU mobile app. So just stay diligent and have your student constantly checking. We're unsure, again, of how online classes are going to look. Again, that's all going to determine what the fall is going to look like. So just like I mentioned before, have you and your student constantly keep checking. This Q&A session is directed more about commuting students and living on campus. So if you have any questions that you maybe not are super comfortable asking, or just want something out there, we would love for you to direct those questions to our 3 campus partners.
So I see, what does a student need to be doing concerning housing? So we are in the process of getting that selection process going, but I would recommend that you certainly pay a housing deposit if you want to include your child or your student to be able to get a space on campus. So they can pay your housing deposit online, and then we'll be able to work with that student to secure them housing once we have an idea of what that looks like. But just to clarify, once we'll be sending out information as well too via email. So I would have the student continue to check their email as it relates to any sort of housing information that we'll send out.
So I see that we have a couple questions in the chat, and one of them is, are freshmen typically assigned to specific residence hall? And then we also have a question of what percentage of students commute? So that can go to Alex and Shelley.
So as far as the residence halls go, all of our first year residence halls are traditional style halls. So they're single rooms with group bathrooms as well too. So we have Shea and Durgan Hall, which is our exclusive first year hall on the east side of campus. So and some of this might be foreign to you as far as terminology goes, but we have Shea Durgan Hall, Woodward Hall, Scott Hall, which is the one that I'm in right now currently supervising, and as well as a handful of students in Pope Hall as well, which those last three that I mentioned are on the west side of campus where Boyden Hall is, and all of the academic buildings primarily.
And then in terms of undergraduate students, the percentage who are commuters is about 63% of undergrad students. And then if you count the graduate students, Bridgewater as a whole is a little over 70% commuter students.
Britt, do you want to give some of your experience about if you have lived on campus or if you've been a commuter student?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I actually lived in Shea Durgan Hall. It's our biggest residence hall on the east side of campus. It's a big number of students in it, I'll say that. But honestly, it's a really good building if your child is more into a larger social setting, in the sense that like the RAs put on bigger programs there. You're more likely to find so many different people. Within my first week, I met my whole floor, honestly, at the floor meeting. And I was very friendly with everyone I lived with on that floor. So yeah, Shea Durgan is the one that I have most experience with, but I have had friends who lived in Scott Hall as well as Woodward Hall. They're smaller halls, so it's a little bit of a smaller community, but you still make pretty great friendships over there as well.
Yes, so you're looking at about 700 students just about in Shea and Durgan Hall, and roughly 300 or so in both Woodward and Scott. Scott's a little bit bigger than Woodward.
Shelley, I have a question for you. How are some ways that commuter students can get involved so they feel a part of the BSU community as a first-year student?
Great question. So a couple of things. So when I was doing student days I was talking to students about formulating their schedule, and that's what I talk a little bit about usually during orientation, is working their schedule. So some of our commuter students are only taking a couple of classes, and some have competing priorities, right? So they're maybe living at home. Maybe our commuters are actually have significant others or children at home. So they're trying to set their schedule in such a way that allows them to kind of get in and get out. But for students that are looking for ways to get involved and still maintain a schedule if they're working a full-time job, I talk about clumping their classes in such a way that there's gaps in between, so that if they're going to come to campus, come spend a couple days a week here, but make plans in the gap, right? So that they can meet with other students from class, work on class projects, go to the library, eat in the dining hall. There's a phenomenal commuter meal plan that literally pays for itself. And I do the math out for everybody, but it more than pays for itself, so that they're engaging with students. They visit their friends who live in the residence halls. They can easily be signed in at the front desk. And then on top of that, something that I think students don't realize as commuters, and what I've learned as I've kind of built this office, is that they don't even realize that everything's open to them. So the fitness center on campus is free to all BSU students. So I say to them, if you go to the gym anyway, this is free. So don't pay a gym membership, right? So if we're talking about ways to save money, if they're trying to rent an off-campus apartment, if they're looking for other ways to engage, clubs and organizations have varying times. Maybe there's one night that they can stay on campus. And then participating in a lot of the lunch and learns or other kind of club or tabling events. There's always things happening in the campus center. So there's everything from little involvements and little engagement on campus. And then the commuter services office is always open. So there's always kind of lounge chairs, microwave, like there's ability to have a snack and kind of sit down for a few minutes. It's just about being active so that they feel like Bridgewater is more than just a place they go and park, walk to a class and leave again. And so there's a lot of ways. We have commuter ambassadors that help engage. So those are peer commuters that have the experience as well about how to navigate the newness to campus and how to build an experience if that's what they're looking for. So it's important to connect them early on, and we're doing more in terms of commuter programming in the town, engaging the town with the students that they're hosting. So there's a lot, so much. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but certainly as we talk about what works and what doesn't, the commuter ambassadors sometimes are the best for that peer-to-peer. So it's similar to the RA in the residence halls. The commuter ambassador kind of reaches out early on and starts to help them navigate what commuting looks like, whichever way that they come through in terms of commuting.
Hey, Shelley. Just to follow up with that, what would be a way for commuter students to get their parking permit? Is it different from students living on campus? Is it about the same?
No, so it's the same way. There is an early Bears parking decal, so it's like $50 off if you buy it in the course of, I think it's July and August. So if you buy it early, it's $50. They do it for the calendar year, so it's good from like August to August. So if you're taking summer classes, if you're here for other things. So it is the same way if you are driving to Bridgewater. So easy, it's just the Parking Connect card office will have that up, but they won't put that up until after July. I mean, so July, starting probably right after the 4th of July, it'll go up for sale. And they'll start advertising that out.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Alex, I have a quick question for you. How are residence halls assigned to first-year students? How do they go about that process?
Yeah, so for first-year students during the summer, they'll have the opportunity to participate in kind of what's called the lottery process. So how that looks this year, obviously, with kind of the situation that we're in, might look a little bit different. But traditionally, what happens is the student will be given a number, and they'll be able to pick on they'll be able to pick their residence hall on a specific time and date that we assign to them. So during that time, you're allowed to select your roommates that you want to live with, usually between 1 and 2 other individuals that you can choose to live with, and you can pick the residence hall that you live into. So any of the 4 that I had mentioned earlier, those are the 4 main options that you can pick as a first-year student. And then we just go down the list. So when your time is up, when your time is ready, you can select your space.
Awesome. Thank you. Britt, I'm going to pop over to you, and I'm going to ask about what is the best thing about living on campus, and what is the best piece of advice to give a new family member and their student about coming into Bridgewater?
I would say definitely the best part about living on campus is just being around people who are kind of in the same boat as you are, especially as a freshman. You're coming into a whole new experience than high school. It's an entirely new world. So living on campus with people who are going through the same thing you are at the same time, it's really relaxing to know like your worst days, someone's like right next to you having the same issues. So like it's kind of like a nice support system, especially in the residence halls. And with your RAs as well, the RAs are all students, usually not more than like a year or 2 older. So they've been through what you're going through as well, and they give great resources throughout your year. And then, I'm sorry, what's the other question?
What's the best piece of advice that you could give to a new student and their family?
The best piece of advice I could possibly give is just don't be shy. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask. There's so many, like I said, there's so many people who are here to help you, especially like that's one of the main reasons why like they offer you to live on campus is so you have people to help you out like in the times that you need it. So never be afraid to ask any questions. If you ever have any issues or stuff like that, just never be afraid to reach out.
Thanks, Britt. Shelly, I'm going to pop back over to you. I have a couple questions. So I know you talked about ways that commuter students can get involved in campus, but are there other ways that they can get involved off campus? Are there services that they're provided? And then if you could also touch upon what are the specific parking lots for commuting students that they are allowed to park in?
Sure. So ways first to get involved off campus. So there's a couple, and then when we talk about commuters, there's a couple of different categories. So you might have heard my office was called Off-Campus and Commuter Student Services. So all students that are non-residential are commuters, but not all commuters are off-campus students. And so what I mean by that is we have a large number of students who don't live at home, and when they come to college, they rent an apartment within Bridgewater, for the most part, within Bridgewater with friends, other college students. And so, so I have some links and access for students to look at that market. But in terms of the town relations, there's a lot of things that happen in town, either in the parks, in the community, in the town square. There's the standard stores that anyone would need right in town. And then there's some different kind of groups and communities that exist in Bridgewater that exist in any or community. So there is opportunity. I recommend always that they join the Town of Bridgewater Facebook page, just because they list a lot of important things that are going on. So it's good to be aware and for them to keep abreast of the community they live in. And then I think in terms of the parking, there's the primary lots are the Spring Street lot, the parking garage, Hooper Street, and Swenson. And so, and those lots probably don't mean a lot to you other than all of the commuter parking lots really are on the exterior of campus, which most all of the parking lots are. And then the buses run. So if you don't want to walk to campus, the buses run. We have some maps that we put out that show you like walking distance from every parking lot as you get further out. So that's helpful for commuters. So if your class is at 8 and you're pulling into Spring Street lot at 7:50, the chances of you being on time, depending on which building you're going to, is slim to none. So you know, we try to put information out for students to really be planning to arrive to campus so that you can park, get settled, and arrive on time to your class if you do have so pack that into already what you're doing.
Thank you, Shelly.
Thank you, Shelly. So Britt, I see a question in this chat about textbooks, and since you're a student, I'd love to hear your perspective. Do you have any recommendations on where to buy books? How do you buy your books? Things like that.
Well, first, it's important to check the bookstore website to see what exact book you need. And if you go into the BSU bookstore website, there is a place where you can plug in the class that you're taking and the section that you're taking, because it's important to know the section, because sometimes there's multiple sections of the same class, but each teacher has a different version of the book that they use. So I would first check there, see what book is required for the class. And I check prices amongst many different websites when it comes to my books. So I look at the bookstore, I check the prices there to rent and to buy. And I also check Amazon, because Amazon's also really good about their prices for textbooks. So I usually check between the bookstore and Amazon, whichever has like the best price. And I also take in consideration whether or not I want to rent or buy it. If I know I'm probably just gonna take the book and just not really do anything with it afterwards, I know it's not a popular class, I tend to just rent it so that I can give it back at the end of the semester, and I'm not paying as much. Or sometimes if I know it's a popular class and I see a good price for the book, I'll buy it and then I'll use it for the semester and sell it to another student afterwards. So it really, yeah, I would just go between Amazon and the bookstore, definitely.
Thank you, Britt.
Alex. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, go ahead.
Alex, I have a quick question for you. If maybe could you talk about some of the expectations of what it's like to live in a residence hall, and what's the do's and don'ts of what you can bring and what you can't bring? Excuse me.
Yeah, so I mean, we see all sorts of different people bringing a lot of different and interesting things into the residence hall sometimes, and sometimes we have to stop people at the door during opening. So as far as the do's and don'ts go, there is a complete list on our website, and I can certainly direct you to it. But some of the more popular things that maybe you're not necessarily, or students aren't necessarily aware of, that you're technically not allowed to bring, or you are limited in bringing. So for instance, in one single room, you can only have one mini fridge in there. You can only have one microwave in there. So it's important that as you're establishing relationships with your roommates, that you're kind of coordinating who's going to bring what, so that people are aware of that as well too. So things that are restricted, obviously, we have an alcohol and a drug policy on campus, so those things are not permitted on campus. But little things like upholstered furniture, which people don't necessarily realize. So anything that has kind of that stuffing. So we see a lot of those kind of circular chairs that people like to bring in that have the padding in them. Ottomans, your own mattress, those things that we don't allow. We are flexible with mattress toppers, as long as they're kind of that crate kind of foam fabric. But there's a complete list, and I could go on and on about that. But incense burners, anything with an open flame, those things aren't technically allowed in the residence halls as well. Pets, that's one that might pop up every once in a while. So unless you're approved to have a pet to have an animal for whatever reason, the only sorts of pets that you can have are fish for any student that's allowed on campus. So, but I can send I can send that list along with all of our restricted items to bring. But as far as like packing goes, we do have a packing list as well of recommended items that you can bring. But I would highly suggest that you're very resourceful with what you do bring, because they're good size spaces, but they can only fit so much, especially when you have one or two folks in there. So I would definitely recommend that, especially now that we're very, very conscious about safety and making sure we're not overcrowding our residence halls. Just bringing the essentials and some comfort things as well is really, really important. So, if we'll probably say a prayer if we see a U-Haul pull up to the front of one of our residence halls, because we know what's coming after that fact. So definitely try to pack essentials and things that you might need, because even throughout the year, we do some offerings as far as allowing the student to go to Walmart. We'll fund a trip for them to go to Walmart or a local shopping mall, assuming that those options are still available. But they can buy the essentials after they've kind of assessed the space and seen what really they need or what they can fit else in there too.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shelley.
No, I just wanted to add something I had seen earlier, and because I know that we were talking about transportation for commuters, I peeped that someone had asked about the percentage of students that come in on the train every day. And so we don't know exact numbers, but even in a recent survey that I did, it only comes out to be like 1 or 2%. But if you think about 2% of over 7,000, that's a little more significant. There is, I noticed that they have given you the link to the parking website. On that website, there is a MBTA train discount pass, but you have to purchase it by a certain date in August. So if that is of interest to you, then I would definitely say to check that out when you're on that website from the link they gave you, if you are coming via the commuter rail, for sure.
Thank you. And again, I saw a question in the chat about is first year students allowed to have cars on campus? Primarily no, unless there is an exception related to a major, or unless they're granted permission through the Connect Card and Parking Services office. But for majority of first year students, cars are not allowed on campus. And I'm gonna pop over to Britt. I saw a question about how mail gets delivered to campus. Do you wanna touch about that, Britt?
Yep. So all mail, if you want to send student packages or anything like that, you just address it to their name, but the address you need to use is 45 School Street, which 45 School Street, Bridgewater, in our zip code. It's located in the mailing office in Tillinghast Hall on the west side of campus. It's right across from our Rondelou campus area. It's also Tilly, the dining hall, which means nothing to you guys now, but once you get used to the things on campus, you'll know where it is. Yeah, so if your student ever wants to order anything online, or if you ever want to send your student anything, that's where it needs to be mailed to.
Awesome, thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? I know we saw. Laura, is the mail office open 24/7? It is not open 24/7. It's open 9 to 4, I believe, but it's open Monday through Friday. So your student will get an email, as Britt said, mentioning if they have ever got a letter sent to them or a package, and then they can go and pick it up. It's really easily accessible, and it's a great way if you're hungry and you want to get a package, but you want to grab lunch. That's a great way to stop and hit two things with one stone kind of thing.
So I can also just touch upon, it looks like someone asked about priority housing for first year students. Predominantly, as long as you're submitting your housing deposit, for the most part, it's tied into that system. So you'll get a number, pretty random as far as the whole general selection process goes for first year students. So there isn't a ton of priority housing for students unless they demonstrate either a particular need through our disability resources office, or if they need to live in a certain space based on their major, or if they participate in one of our various learning communities on campus, living learning communities on campus as well too. So we have a lot of information on our website about our living learning community options for first year students too. So if they elect to live in one of those communities, and it can be either the honors community, healthy living, math and science learning community, and there are a few others as well too. Those are housed in either specific residence halls or in specific floors of residence halls as well too. So those are some of the scenarios where there would be priority, but for the most part, it's kind of all inclusive. And yes, housing deposits are being accepted, and you can pay for those online through our billing platform.
Just to be conscious of time, because we are getting close to the half-hour mark, are there any other questions that you all have for our 3 campus partners? You're more than welcome to unmute yourself at this point, or again, share your question in the chat feature. We just want to be conscious of time of our campus partners because they came on and they're helping us out here. So please ask any question that you may have. So it doesn't look like we have any questions for now, but I am going to ask that Shelly and Alex put their emails in the chat feature. So if you has any other follow-up questions for Shelly or Alex, they're more than welcome to answer them for you. Again, Britt is one of our orientation leaders. So if your student wants a way to connect with an orientation leader, there are new Bear Hangouts that are being held 5 times a week on Zoom with 2 orientation leaders regarding majority of topics. These topics can be informal or formal, and it's a great way for your student to ask orientation leader questions that they may have. So if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to say thank you so much to our campus partners. If you guys, again, have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Michelle and I will stay on until the end if anyone has any personalized questions that they want to ask us. But thank you so much, all of you, for joining. And we look forward to seeing you if you decide to join another one. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I just there were a few questions there at the end. I didn't know but one was about the meal packages, and I know everything is up in the air, but what are the meal packages and what would people recommend?
So that's a really great question. And the answer might not be what you're looking for, but it really depends on how your student may eat. So there are something called dining dollars and something called meal swipes. So the Parking Connect card office breaks up what the difference between each meal plan is and how many meal swipes and how many dining dollars that your student may receive. So if you know your student is more of a snacker and likes to snack throughout the day, they might want to get more dining dollars so they can just pop into the 2 of the dining halls that provide dining dollars, and then they can go and grab a quick snack between classes. But if you know if your student just likes to eat 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they might want to get more meal swipes and go to our 2 dining halls that have more meal swipes available.
Thank you. And then outline like the prices for each online.
Yes, so if you go onto your student's housing portal, there's an option to look at the meal plan, and it breaks down what the meal plans are, and it gives the prices per semester.
I also just dropped a link in the chat for everyone who's on here asking about meal plans. And if you click on that link, it should come up with the fall 2020 meal plans for both resident and commuter students. And it breaks down how many meal swipes, how many dining dollars, and what the cost is, all on that website in a little helpful graph.
Perfect. Thank you.
You can also get that from the mobile app as well.
Hi, I have a question. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer or not, but I'm going to give it a try. My son is a transfer student, so he's coming in as a sophomore. He was pulled into housing by a current student who's also a sophomore. And I'm just wondering, it sounds like some of the housing may be fluid. Like, do you think some kids may get moved around, or I'm just wondering how, because he doesn't know the system there and he doesn't really know anybody there, how he would best follow up on that.
So I think I answered part of your question earlier in the chat.
Sorry, I missed a little bit of time.
No, you're totally fine. I saw that you messaged me, so I tried to respond, and I don't know, it got lost in all the questions that were just
actually I didn't, but okay.
Submitted at the end there. But yeah, so what was stated at the beginning of this meeting here was that they're unsure exactly of what housing is going to look like right now because of the pandemic, and the school still, it hasn't released exactly what the plan is. We're expecting a announcement by the end of the month, so by July 1st. What Alex did say earlier in the call was that housing will not be at full capacity, so it won't be traditional housing exactly how it's been all the past few years. What that looks like, we're not really sure of yet, but we should be hearing about that by July 1st. So definitely have your student checking their email, keeping an eye out for that, maybe checking the mobile app. I know Bridgewater has also been announcing things on their Instagram, so feel free to follow that if you have an Instagram page or a Facebook page. I'm sure that it will be posted on all of those different medias when that gets announced.
Is there a chance that he could end up without housing?
Again, I don't really have that answer. I want to say they're not going to be trying to do that. Obviously, they're going to try to accommodate everyone, and considering they're still taking housing deposits, I can't guarantee anything, but I would want to say no. I'm sure that Bridgewater is going to do whatever they can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay.
They just want to make sure that everyone is safe.
Yeah, because he was pulled in, it wasn't like his own spot in the rotation of choosing housing. He was pulled in. I just don't know if it's something that he'd be bumped out. Like that's just what I don't know how to help him navigate that or follow up on that, but I'll just try to have him check all these things.
Yeah, I would just definitely check your email, have him check his email, and then by July 1st, we should have a more concrete answer to these kinds of questions.
Okay.
I'm sorry that I can't provide you with a better answer.
Oh, no, believe me, I get it. I'm a teacher and I'm struggling giving all my students the same, my parents the same kind of answers for next year. But thank you for trying. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I see another question in the chat about changing rooms if there's roommate issues. Megan, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So when your student gets in with the roommate, they are required to be with them for 2 weeks. But between those 2 weeks, if your student kind of doesn't see eye to eye with the roommate that they decided to go in, after the 2 weeks, they can put in a roommate request change. That is something that they can do themselves, or if there is a bigger issue, hopefully not, but if there's something more they want to talk about, they can always reach out to their RA, and then their RA can help them fill out the roommate request form, and then that will be on housing to make that change. Typically, those changes take about a week. So I just let your student know to be conscious of that. And then obviously housing can work something out with your student, and then you can move rooms. I hope that answers the question.
The reason they have that 2-week buffer as well is because they obviously want students to try to work out their problems before just switching rooms, especially in the beginning of a semester where there's might be a lot of homesickness and adjustment things going on. So they do wait that 2 weeks so that those two roommates can try to work things out and kind of see if it's just the initial move-in that might be causing some of any of that tension. But definitely, if any students concerned, RAs are there to help. As Megan stated, they're residence assistants. Britt, who was on earlier, is one of them, and they're excellent resources.
Are there any more questions that Michelle and I can answer?
So my daughter has already met and chosen 2 roommates. It sounds like, and I know you don't know the answer, but it sounds like it's pretty unlikely that they're going to have 3 in one room, at least to start out with. Does that sound accurate?
Again, and I'm so sorry that we keep repeating this. We know as much as you do. When we know at the end of the month, we'll have a better understanding. That is a great question to reach out to Alex or anyone at Residence Life just to get that follow-up question. Michelle and I don't want to provide any of the wrong information, so those are 2 great resources to always reach out to as well. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't really answer your question, so I apologize.
No, I understand, because I know it's not a fair question today in these times. So I get it.
Thank you.
I see a question about how close the train is to the rest of campus. The train actually goes right down the middle of our campus. So that's actually how we divide our campus from East Campus and West Campus. It's actually a tunnel that goes underneath the train track. It's really awesome because it means you can just hop on and ride to Boston. I know for me, I'm not much of a sports fan, but when the Patriots parade happened, I hopped on the T and I went and I saw the Patriots parade, which was my first time seeing any kind of sports parades. That was really fun. And it's just nice to have that train be there so close so you can have it access to Boston if you want to. Gone some shopping trips and things like that. It's been really nice. It is 6:41, so I just want to be aware of the time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Megan and I will stay on for a few more minutes. If not, feel free to follow up with any extra questions at the orientation email or with Alex and Shelly's email, which they dropped below.
Thank you to everyone also for attending. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.